Greetings, everyone. Um, this is the beginning of a journey that I'm allowing people to take with me. This YouTube channel has been something that I've thought about for quite some time and thought that I had to wait until a perfect moment in my life to go ahead and initiate it. And through listening to Spirit or the universe or Creator or Allah, um, I've come to the realization that it's time to document my journey from a place of my brokenness, just to be real. Um, the past 2 years and giving birth to 3 children, and for everything that journey has been, um, I have to relearn some things about myself and strengthen my self-love. And documenting that journey is set forth with the intention of, as I heal myself, I help others heal themselves as well. For people who know me, you know that I'm dedicated towards Black liberation on all levels, and became really involved in the movement, for lack of a better terminology, a few years ago. So with that being said, on some background as to why I'm addressing you today from here and not on Facebook Live or something of that nature, I'm documenting a journey and hoping that others will join in seeking self-love and self-healing in a way that will allow us to build community towards liberation. So there were a couple of posts that I put up, and I kind of want to read those. They captured my thoughts on various days leading to this point. And I'm going to try not to be too long on here because I want to hold your attention while I'm talking. So a question of the moment came to me in deciding to do this. And I said, am I willing to be raw and uncut with the truth of my journey to heal myself and help those in my community enduring similar circumstances or experiences liberate themselves as I liberate myself? Because we cannot heal or change what we cannot acknowledge. And to love ourselves wholly and completely, we must acknowledge our total truth. Many speak of freedom within oneself being liberation from the mental enslavement of perpetrated oppressions by the hegemonic, heteropatriarchal, white supremacist power structure. Yet every day we encounter subtle, outright attacks on our humanity from the world we currently live in. So from someone who has found freedom within myself through a very long journey towards self-love, I seek total and complete liberation in my lifetime and my children's lifetime from any power structure that refuses to let me and my community simply live. So with that being said, a definition of community that I hold strongly to, that I feel like ultimately holds the key to our liberation as Black people, as the Black community, and as the world at large, because we cannot continue on this current path that is leading towards, like I've said before, a self-imposed apocalypse for the conditions we created in this world, because life can't continue on an earth that doesn't have clean water or sufficient food, and pollution everywhere that we look. Fukushima is still leaking. If you don't know what that is, Google it. We have radiation that's been leaking into the water for years, and we have oil from the Gulf oil spill now several years ago that never stopped leaking. So, even though I speak specifically to Black liberation, and that's my current focus, we have to get Black liberation and liberation for all oppressed people all over the world, or we can't join together to do what is necessary to ensure that we have a life, and not just a life, but a livelihood with that life, and the ability to seek peace and happiness in ways that we're not allowed to at the moment, for ourselves and for the generations to come. In Native American culture, it's understood that you function in a way that allows life to continue for the next 7 generations. And right now, honestly, we can't guarantee that for the next generation, is the truth. So a definition of community that I hold to and that I've spoke so many times, because speaking things sets out intentions into the universe. You know what I'm saying? Everything is energy. I feel like your thoughts, your words, your deeds are a constant conversation with God. So, but the definition of community that I stick to is by Some Bamfu Some, Her and her husband have several books. I apologize for Facebook in the background. I should have turned that off. That'll be a note for next time. But the definition of community that I hold to is community is an environment where you find a home in each other's heart and soul. It is a living entity with spirit as its anchor, where a group of people are empowered by one another, by spirit, and by the ancestors to be themselves, carry out their purpose, and to use their power responsibly. So, I've been involved in organizing efforts for a little over a year now that are very specific to the Black community. And how do we do this? How do we build community? How do we achieve liberation? And one thing that I've learned through all my organizing, whether it's been from the marches, to being a facilitator in community meetings, seeking to get some changes on policy and procedures within the police department that ultimately aren't going to address the system. I've kind of been there, done that on various approaches on a personal level. And I feel like the ultimate threat to the power structure is to build a strong community, which is something we have not had for a very, very, very long time. So, and I would say very long time in the sense, here's a historical perspective, Africa is not just a geographical location. It is a state of mind. It is a way of being. And that way of being on a very fundamental level, no matter what you agree with, in ancient African religion or spirituality or whatever your path is on that tip, the way of being that allows Africa to be a concept and a way of life other than just a geographical location is grounded in the fact that there was no concept of the individual in Africa, anywhere, in any tribe, in any country, at all, in any culture. There was no concept of the individual until Europeans arrived. And so that links into how we must begin to change our mindset, because centuries ago, through a whole bunch of history that maybe at some point I'll delve into from my grad studies and seeking to figure out at what point we took a wrong turn, there began this effort for certain people in power to exploit and oppress other groups of people and the earth for the sake of temporary happiness, for the sake of profit and gain for a select few. So, part of that ties into the fact that we cannot heal and grow from what we are unwilling to acknowledge. And what we have to acknowledge is the path that got us to this point. And acknowledging, the path that got us to this point, you cannot ignore, for all the people who say, I have freedom within myself, skip the power structure, it doesn't oppress me. We kind of have to address that on a very fundamental level, because it attacks our livelihood in ways that from generations ago we're still seeking to heal. I mean, let's be real, the wounds of slavery have not healed. If we carry 5 generations of ancestral memory in our DNA, we have some serious healing to do, and to achieve that healing on that level, and both in our personal individual lives, even though I said we're not sticking to the concept of individual, we do have to deal with ourselves, to get to a point where we can even participate in a positive, growing kind of way in building community. That comes from somebody who, I recognize that I still have my work to do on loving myself, to the point that my interactions and my relationship with those around me is at all times of a positive nature. So, another quote I had kind of wrote down that I want to share, because I read, and that speaks to me at various times and helps guide my path on some things. But Sombanfu Some, again, she has several texts that speak to, she's from West Africa, and she speaks to the differences in the mindset of European Western culture and society versus African culture and society, even though it's a blanket statement to include it all in one term. But she says that if we are going to achieve our purpose in life, we must be willing to fall out of grace and accept its lessons. When we feel righteous about ourselves or deny our brokenness, we are fighting against the higher states of grace that await us. And so on a self kind of level, on a personal kind of level, we have to be truthful about where we're broken and how that brokenness occurred. Because so many times within the Black community, we're not allowed to share that truth. What happens at home stays at home, what have you. And there are a myriad of experiences that I've endured that to speak truthfully about it's been difficult, or you don't speak on it. And so the documentation of this journey is definitely for women who have endured abuse, and men as well, but I come from, a female, a woman perspective, who have endured abuse, whether, it be from a partner or a friend or a family member or what have you, on all levels. I'm talking about physical, mental, emotional, sexual abuse. For any of those that have endured any of that, before we can heal as a community, we have to be able to be real with ourselves about that experience, because so many times where it's not admitted, we're not real with ourselves about that experience. But we also have to be real with the people around us. And that's a whole nother level of difficulty, especially within the Black community, and for how we don't speak on things. And it's that silence that contributes to our brokenness. It's that silence that contributes to our brokenness and allows the oppressor to maintain a certain hold over us. Because, fundamentally in Africa, community was a place in which everyone was uplifted. You were no stronger than the next person in the community. If somebody in the community is going through something, or even if somebody in the community has a fall from grace, so to speak, somebody speaks on this, then it is the purpose of that community and the heart of that community to come together and address it in a loving way and be the support system that any individual or person may need that's present in the community to be their best selves. And that's the link that we're missing in achieving any liberation from a capitalistic system that requires that somebody be exploited. Because in so many ways, we are affected by the environment that we live in. And any of us, like Audre Lorde said, one of the greatest things we have to do in seeking liberation, and this is an exact quote, but one of the greatest things that we have to do in seeking liberation is remove the piece of the oppressor within ourselves. So, we have to begin to deal with that. Another quote from Audre Lorde that she wrote about what we can learn from the 1960s. She speaks on needing to heal and how the oppressor maintains its hold over us as a community. She said, as Black people, if there is one thing we can learn from the 60s, it is how infinitely complex any move for liberation must be. For we must move against not only those forces which dehumanize us from the outside, but also against those oppressive values which we have been forced to take into ourselves. Through examining the combination of our triumphs and errors, we can examine the dangers of an incomplete vision. Not to condemn that vision, but to alter it, construct templates for possible futures, and focus our rage for change upon our enemies rather than upon each other. And that's a hell of a quote. She spoke a lot of wisdom there in making sure that we examine our journey towards liberation, and even examine ourselves on a personal level in ways that we can look at our triumphs and defeats and learn those and apply those in the sense that we haven't had a complete vision for freedom because we haven't been able to achieve it yet. And at every turn that we've made a successful attempt at liberation without reviewing all the history, at every turn that we've made a successful attempt at liberation, the power structure has had a response. And what we have to do is have a community strong enough to withstand that response. That is ultimate revolution. That is ultimate liberation. And so with that being said, that's on a broader scale. And one other quote from Audre Lorde that she says, revolution is not a one-time event. It's not just something that happens at the snap of a finger where people take into the streets or it changes in the laws. It is becoming always vigilant for the smallest opportunity to make genuine change in established, outgrown responses. So, I offer what I've said for almost the past 15 minutes, and I'm going to wrap it up because I don't like to go too long, I want to hold your attention and have you reflect on what's been said so that we can move towards liberation. I would say that one of the things to take away from this is, like Audre Lorde said, always be vigilant for the smallest opportunity to make genuine change in an established outgrown responses. And that is within yourself, within your relationship to the people around you, as far as negative ways that you might act or contribute to someone's detriment. And especially for those perpetrating abuse within our community. I'll pull that back out again. We need to change the way in which we respond. And we need to change the way in which we respond to the power structure through building community in ways that we have yet to do successfully in a way that is sustained without enduring attacks from the power structure that cripples us and keeps us in this perpetual cycle of attempting to get liberation for centuries at this point. So yeah, I would say for what community building efforts, I would wrap this up with what community building efforts have been going on here in Lexington. We organized a successful Juneteenth celebration that was full of positive vibes, positive energy, building community. We did it on a less than $200 budget with people just coming to the table understanding that this is what needs to be done. Many of our funds were raised last year through doing fish fries. And, for what it is, the health department showed up twice at the Juneteenth celebration. We weren't selling fish. We were giving away food to the community and had other food vendors present. But, long story short, without hounding on it, the health department attempted to assert that we were selling food. We're raising money somehow. And, we're going to check your food that you're barbecuing for your family, and just really violated microaggressions, on all levels, and proceeded to return to bring us information that's available online. And mind you, the park had a Wi-Fi connection and many people had phones we could have accessed it, but to bring out printed information that we could have accessed online about obtaining a permit to sell food. Many of you all know within the Black community, fish fries are how we raise food, flip money, what have you, for all kinds of causes within our community, from churches to individuals to clubs to basketball teams to what have you. So this is nothing new, yet we were targeted for doing that. And truth be told, for where it's at, we don't accept money from various entities. We are not a nonprofit organization. We are a very grassroots organization of community members that have just come together to accomplish the building of community. So with that being said, if you want to support our efforts, it's $50 to get another permit. So we're attempting to make sure we have that because we feel like any further efforts will be targeted. And if you would like to donate to us to help those efforts, whether it's $5, $10 or more, you can send it PayPal to juneteenthlexington@gmail.com. This is not a personal account. This is a group account where there'll be accountability for what comes in and what goes out in helping to build community. We're seeking to do a Friday night vibe, which is a takeoff the local Thursday night live that is held on the Old Slave Auction Block downtown, where we should not gather for obvious reasons, just because of the energy of that place. So that's our next community endeavor, and we need funds and even minimal funds to go ahead and pull this off, because we're not seeking to profit in any way for the people that are present in the group. We just seek to feed the community and have a sound system to play music and help add to the vibe, and just gather as a community to create a space where we are safe, where we are comfortable, where we are loved, and build community that embodies what I've already discussed, earlier in the video. So like I said, if you want to help those efforts in any way, it's juneteenthlexington@gmail.com through a PayPal donation. That's something we could set up on a whim to go ahead and try and get past the hurdle that local power structure has placed in our way. And it's JUNETEENTH Lexington LEXINGTON@gmail.com. So we didn't want to have to resort to that, but that is something that we need at this moment to continue our work. With that being said, looking forward to taking this journey with you, and I will do videos as I feel like the universe speaks. I wanted to go ahead and lay this foundation. Hopefully as time goes on, I improve. This was something I wanted to do in between the twins sleeping and all of my other children being other places at the moment. And that is my signal to end as I go tend to baby girl. Peace and blessings to you all, to everything that is life. Black liberation.